Okay, well, good afternoon and welcome to Fresh Minds' fifth webinar of the COVID crisis. Before I introduce our speaker this afternoon, I wanted just to quickly, I see a lot of new people signed up to this, so I thought we could introduce myself, Fresh Minds, and our webinar series. So I'm James Callender. I'm one of the MDs here at Fresh Minds. Fresh Minds is a resourcing and consulting business, placing super smart people from analyst to expert into permanent jobs, project roles on contract basis, but also fully outsourced managed projects. We're keen to be super helpful to our clients and our wider network through this difficult time. And so we've been having a series of webinars which have been growing in popularity week on week, which is great. Really just to share some people we know with our network. And this week we're very excited to have Charlie Corbett, who is going to speak to the title of The Art of Plain Speaking. I think being able to communicate near and far right now is obviously he's worked for the FT, Dow Jones, and recently wrote a book called The Art of Plain Speaking. So without further ado, a warm virtual remote welcome to Charlie Corbett. Charlie, over to you.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Welcome everybody to my talk on the art of plain speaking. I am here today to explain why embracing the power of plain language will help your business, your career, and possibly your life. My philosophy is built on the premise that the most successful leaders, salespeople, and marketers are the ones who can write and speak with the most eloquence, purpose, and clarity. In fact, I have an opening slide for you, which I think gets to the essence of my philosophy, really. Albert Einstein: any fool can make things bigger, more complex, and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. That sums up sort of foundation stone of my business. So who am I? I'm a writer, as James says, former business and finance hack, and founder of the Plain Speaking Institute, which is a business that helps companies get their message across in a way that is clear, concise, and above all, human, because evidence shows that companies who communicate clearly using plain English perform better and win more business than those with verbose management teams. The great irony at the heart of this communications revolution we find ourselves a part of is that the more ways we find to communicate with one another, the worse we seem to have become at communicating. Companies in particular have lost the ability, I think the confidence even, to articulate simple messages to a clearly defined audience. The language they use has become hackneyed, dull, and meaningless, acting only to obscure and confuse rather than reinforce important messages. So my point is, today, if you want to be taken seriously by those who matter, if you want clients and potential clients to engage with what you're saying, if you want your marketing to stand out from the pack, ultimately be a more successful business or person, then it is crucial that you learn to write and speak in a way that is elegant and clear. Use plain English and short words and sentences. Don't listen to those people who say you must use the lingo or speak the language of business. Those people hide their insecurities behind a wall of jargon. Remember, those who truly understand a concept or idea are the ones who are able to articulate that idea in the simplest way possible, with the most simplicity and clarity. If you want people to pay attention when you write or speak, then avoid this kind of corporate non-speak, I call it, like you would a rabid dog. And take heed of these words from the great 20th century writer and novelist George Orwell: it is easier, even quicker, once you have the habit, to say, in my opinion, it is not an unjustifiable assumption that, than to say, I think. So, with that, I will give a short talk on what I see as the big areas where people make mistakes in terms of written. We're going to come to this later. I'm going to go back. Well, you know, the big areas where people make mistakes in terms of written and spoken communications. And then I'm going to give you my 5 rules of successful communications. Of course, now it has never been more important to communicate clearly during a global pandemic, a time of global crisis. You need to be able to speak clearly to your employees, to your customers, to your suppliers, to everybody. Crisis or not, though, I think you need to communicate in a way that is clear, honest, and concise. You need to focus on sending out short, clear messages that hit home. No obfuscation, no jargon, no wobbling around the point. And I hope that as a society, we're learning that. Something that will come out of this crisis is that I won't get on to Boris Johnson quite yet, and the somewhat mixed messages that maybe we're getting at the moment as a society. So, how to write well for business? Well, let's start with how not to write well. The problem with most business writing today is that it's plagued by lazy thinking. It is much easier to gum together overused words and platitudes than it is to say something genuinely interesting, or to think hard about why your business is better than the competitors, to strip away the waffle and get to grips with what you actually offer clients and what makes you genuinely different to your competitors. The language companies use today has become bogged down in the sticky treacle of management speak and platitude. Companies try to be all things to all people, and they think that by machine gunning buzzwords into their literature, this will somehow give them an edge. It really, really won't. And I'm here today to tell you that. Let me give you an example. We are committed to delivering innovative, sustainable, global solutions that enhance customer experiences. Our unique insights empower our clients to leverage opportunities in the communications space. Now, what have I said there that has any meaning whatsoever? Nothing. I'm no closer, having read that, to understanding what this business does. Apparently it's in the communications space. Or how it's going to help me solve a problem that I have. It's just a series of stale, overused cliches that have been gummed together. As I say, much easier to gum those together than to come up with something original to say about yourself or your business. These kinds of words have lost their power to hold people's attention. And in fact, I got an email yesterday from one of the biggest global brands. There I'm at it now. One of the biggest brands in the world, who I'm doing some business for. No names, no backdrop. But it was very interesting that this email came through, which I will show to you now along these lines. I've often in the past envisaged our business as horizontal, connecting the dots of lots of in-depth analysis coming from verticals, but we are now seeing just how important the macro issues or levers are in trying to build a sustainable future. I have no idea what that means. I had to phone the guy, get him to spell it out in words of one syllable, in plain English. There is no point in writing an email at all. If he was trying to sell me something, I would not read that. I would just ignore it or wouldn't even open it. So it's very, very important how we communicate. This may look and sound good, but it doesn't have any meaning. The problem with this kind of way of speaking in these words is that, you know, they've lost their power to hold people's attention. They flow over people's minds like water over a worn pebble. And yet, you won't find a single corporate website today that does not bark on endlessly in this kind of fashion, using these kinds of words. Name a company that does not describe itself as innovative. Every company is innovative. Everyone is innovative these days. It drives me mad. And you know what? If everyone is innovative, then nobody is innovative. If everybody's insights are unique, then nobody's insights are unique. And the problem with this way of writing is that nobody pays attention anymore. They hear these words so often, again and again and again. Their brains shut down. It's just so much background noise, whether written or spoken. And the fact is, and this is perhaps the first and biggest lesson for all of us in business, and it's a hard lesson, is that people just don't want to notice your marketing. They don't want to read your amazing insights. They don't want to listen to your podcast. People's natural inclination in all situations is to switch off and think about their holidays, or to have a dinner tonight, or what's on Netflix. And I expect many of you are doing that right now. You have to make people notice you, make them keep listening, make them keep reading, make them pay attention. And the way to do that is to produce sales pitches, articles, videos, and podcasts that will genuinely grab people by the lapels and compel them to listen. That will provoke thought, that will engage in emotional response, laughter, intrigue, even anger is better than nothing at all. And when you do that, you will win more clients. But of course, we're also prone to speaking this kind of management balls. And I include myself in that. You work in this environment, you get sucked in. It's very hard to stop yourself. I spent a long time trying to work out why we get infected by this disease. After all, we don't speak to our friends and family in this way. If a child asked us to fix their bike, we wouldn't offer them an innovative solution or tell them that we put their needs at the heart of everything we do, and we're committed to delivering a sustainable solution in the bicycle space that will fulfill their needs and ultimately enhance their pedaling experience. We just say, okay, son, I'll fix your bike. And yet, as soon as we get in the office, we remove that sensible, plain language hat that solves problems, answers questions directly, and we don the nonsensical corporate waffle hat instead. And I think at the heart of it, there are three reasons why we do this. And before I move on to those, I will show this classic. There's a quote I saw in the FT. If you're quoted in the FT, it's incredibly important that you get your quote right. It's not often you're going to get quoted as a business in the FT, so get it right. Here is a quote that I've picked out for its utter nonsensical nature. London is one of the world's most iconic cities and hosts a progressive mobility environment. I don't know what that is. We're looking forward to building world-class mobility offerings for London by collaborating with drivers and riders and governments. This is a taxi firm. Anyone who reads that sentence is switched off completely. I don't know anything about what this company does. They've taken a taxi firm and overcomplicated it. And another one. This is just an example. It's infected everything. Evening meal solutions. That's just dinner. So why do we speak this nonsensical corporate tease? Well, the first reason I think is insecurity, because maybe we're intimidated by those around us who all seem to speak this way. So if you can't beat them, join them. By talking in this way, we think we might sound more intelligent, more switched on, in with the zeitgeist. And actually, it tends to have the opposite effect. If you're in that meeting and there's someone droning on endlessly using this kind of language and circling back, reaching out and circling back and taking deep dives and talking about their innovative solutions, they're not actually saying anything of any meaning. And so don't follow that lead. Think about what you want to say and come up with clear messages that people will understand very, very quickly. The second reason I think we talk a bit like this is laziness. As I said before, we can't be bothered to think of something original to say. So it's much easier to trot out all that usual guff about being sustainable and innovative. Again, sit down and think hard about what makes you different as either a person or a business, and try to frame it in a different way. The final reason I think it's done is that it's, of course, deliberate using this language. It's a deliberate strategy to hide inconvenient truths, by which I mean it's much easier to restructure a human resource out of its role than it is to fire Bob, who's worked for you for 25 years. So this way of speaking can be used by unscrupulous and faceless bureaucrats to hide behind when they make unpopular decisions. The mere fact we're all referred to as human resources these days, I find particularly dispiriting. It puts us on the same level as coal, I find. We're humans, and I'll come on to that a little bit later. We need to talk to people like they're human beings. So my message to you today is don't take refuge in mediocrity, in bland, hackneyed language, word porridge. Fight it. Fight this way of speaking that has infected our business conversations and marketing. So laziness, and it's deliberate. So, oh yes, so what I do is I'm very sad. I go around collecting these. I take photographs of pointless slogans that don't have any meaning. Here's one: defining drinks logistics. This is a lorry delivering beer. They deliver drinks. I find this extraordinary idea of defining your business, or are you redefining it? I don't know what's better, redefining drinks logistics or defining drinks logistics. Either way, this has no meaning. I saw a van the other day delivering innovative textile services, utterly extraordinary. I have no idea what this firm does. I think it's a dry cleaner delivering clothes. One of my favorites here from an airline or an airport: we are diversifying the passenger seating experiences. I don't know what that means, except I suspect it means you're getting a worse seat. Finally, I heard on the radio one I thoroughly enjoy was the Irish whiskey marketing person who was asked why more people are drinking Irish whiskey. She said it has a significantly enhanced flavour profile. To which, of course, the interviewer asked, do you mean, does it taste better? So, in terms of business, don't empower people with your global insights. Instead, just tell them something they don't know. I may have broken off a little bit there, but I am back again now. Tell them something that will make a difference to their lives. Say something interesting. They'll make them smile, pique their interest. Don't just trot out the usual string of nonsensical waffle. There's also this tendency to use rather abstract phrases that sound inspirational but have no actual meaning, like we'll innovate for our clients an extraordinary future, or even we'll build tomorrow, today. These phrases have no meaning. They wash over people. They just tell it how it is. Solve people's problems and solve them quickly. Say instead, we'll help your company save time, increase efficiency, drive down your costs, reduce your carbon footprint, and here is how we're going to do it. Show, don't tell. If you truly care about your client, again, this will shine through in your actions. You don't need to tell people how passionate you are all the time. I'm passionate about this. Passionate about putting customers at the heart of everything I do. It's the same with authenticity. People in companies who bang on about their authenticity aren't, by the very definition of authenticity, authentic. You don't go around the house saying, oh, look at me, I'm being myself, I'm being myself, I am myself. You simply don't need to shroud what you do in this veil of pompous and quite insipid language. If you want to stand out, if you want people to listen, if you want to get your message across in a way that is powerful and has real meaning, then you need to think much harder about the kind of language that you use. Don't just bark a series of woolly platitudes at a generalized audience and expect potential clients to engage with you, because there is a fine line between cant and sincerity, between hypocrisy and authenticity. Because in the world of modern marketing speak, no product is not innovative. No platform is not integrated. No thinking isn't strategic. No challenge isn't unique. No value isn't aligned. No plan, of course, isn't sustainable. And no project isn't deliverable. No service isn't a solution. No solution isn't holistic, of course. No thought isn't an insight. And no job applicant these days is not dynamic. So, with that, I'm going to move on to my 5 rules. Rule number 1, know your audience. Whenever you write or speak, or whenever you're, this could be a sales pitch, an email to your boss, it could be absolutely anything, but know your audience. Build a vivid picture of the person you want to get your message across to in your mind. Who are you talking to? Always imagine it individual and not a crowd. It makes it much easier to keep your writing clear and relevant. When I wrote my book, I had a picture of my perfect demographic that I was writing to, and that was my wife, my biggest critic, and that kept my writing relevant. I always thought, what would she be thinking as I wrote the book? I won't write it that way. Would she understand that? Would that make her smile? Would that be useful to her? And she was a fair representation of the audience. You must always think of an individual. It's what Terry Wogan did on his radio show. He always had 7 million listeners, but he spoke to a single person. He always said he spoke to one individual listener in his mind. And that is why when you listen to him, it felt like he was talking to you personally. That's why I don't like this word stakeholder. Okay? We all talk about, we bang on endlessly about our stakeholders. Stakeholders, we're all, it used to mean literally someone who had a stake in a business. And now we're all stakeholders in the world. We're stakeholders in the environment. We're stakeholders in this and that. The problem is fine, but the problem is when we think of stakeholders, we're no longer imagining an individual. We're trying to imagine a vast, homogeneous mass. Customers are individuals. You need to speak to them as individuals, and that is how you connect to people. That is how you relate. Political parties don't win or lose elections. Individuals do. Committees don't win lucrative contracts. Individuals do. And they sell to each other as individuals. And the reason you'll do well doing that way is because we're all human. Okay? We are all human. Think of everything in human terms. We are easily bored, easily distracted, worry, fear for the future. We like to laugh, we get angry, we regret. We need reassurance, especially now. We compete with others. We are interested in other people. And above all, we love stories. Humans love stories. It's innate. Ever since Neolithic man stood around the campfire telling stories after a good day's hunting, it's almost in our genetic code for us to receive stories. Everything is a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So we must first of all think about your audience and remember your audience is human. Rule number 2, clarity is king. Clarity and simplicity lie at the heart of all good communications. Muddled thinking leads to muddled writing. Know clearly what you want to say before you start writing, before you start speaking. Always read back every sentence you write and ask yourself, what am I trying to say here? Have I succeeded in saying it in the shortest and the clearest way possible? Best ideas, the simplest ideas. Can you explain it in a couple of short sentences to your granny? And if you cannot explain that idea, then the chances are it's not a very good idea. And always make sure, which always helps when you're getting a message across, to use a verb. We often forget to use verbs in corporate speak these days. So going back to the last election, get Brexit done was a better slogan for the Conservative Party than Theresa May's slogan before, which was strong and stable. Because get Brexit done was achieving an aim. There was an action. Strong and stable, meaningless. Don't know what that means. Or even the Labour election. For the many, not the few. Okay, sounds nice, sounds great. But it doesn't have any meaning. There's nothing going to happen, so we ignore it. Well, of course, the classic now has been what was previously our advice for COVID-19, which was stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. This is great messaging, okay? 3 short sentences, 3 verbs, 3 strong verbs, stay, protect, save. Even my 5-year-old son knows this. He repeats it again and again and again. It's very, very good messaging. So when it comes to marketing your business, it's important to create clear, simple messages. You need to get the essence of your business to the essence of your business in a line, a very short line, even a few words, and ask yourself, what is it I want the world to know about my business, and how can I get that across in the simplest way possible? Then you construct your simple messages. Of course, the classic example of all of this is Apple, Steve Jobs. Now, he created an entire civilization, basically, based on 2 words, think different. And that personified everything they created. It turned something that would look quite pretty with some good gadgets into something that defined you as a person, into a lifestyle choice. And every product that was produced reflected those 2 words, thinking different. It's very clever, and you can do that with any business. It doesn't have to be a global computer manufacturer. Second rule, be clear, clarity is king. Rule number 3, be concise, because people are time poor. keep it short. People want to stop listening. They want to stop reading. Concision and economy of words are critical facets of good writing and speaking, and therefore good marketing and good selling. As Hemingway used to say, the author Hemingway used to say, learn to say no to your typewriter, or indeed your keyboard these days. I find a big trap that many companies fall into, especially in presentations and websites, is trying to say everything all at once. These sort of endless bullet points on endless slides and web pages that go on for eternity. Everybody's already stopped reading because you're trying to say everything all at once. It goes up to different divisions in the company. Add this, add that, add this. Suddenly you've got a sentence that goes on for a week. Everybody stopped reading at the first few words. You've got to really, well, imagine it like a dinner party. You make the mistake of asking someone what they do, and they reply with their life story. You know, you switch off after leaving university with my degree in advanced mathematics, ... You've gone, you've switched off. Now, what if that person had just turned around and said, I'm a rocket scientist? Less is more. Always, in writing, in marketing, in business, you've got to tease people, get them interested. People will switch off. The average attention span online for words is around 250 words, and research has shown that people actually switch off after 20 words. So you've got to compel them to read on. That's why you need to get all the information in, all the important information in quickly. As a journalist, you get this hammered into you when you write news stories. That's called the inverted pyramid of news, but we won't go into that. But imagine it like the Cinderella story. If you were a journalist, or if you're a business, you do not start this story. Once upon a time, there was a lonely kitchen maid who lived in the fireplace in the cellar. No. The headline here is kitchen maid marries prince. That's what people want to know. They're not interested in anything else. You can take the rest of the story afterwards. So, what's your kitchen maid marries prince? You know, what is that part of your business? Get that out there first. That's why you need to think about these clear, short messages about what you do and why you're better than the competitors. It can just be a few words or sentences that can go at the top of everything you do and be reinforced again and again and again. The best writers, best speakers, but the best writers can capture a huge amount of information using a small amount of words. Like a good painter can capture the essence of a person with a few simple brushstrokes. And I admit it's not easy, and it does take thinking about. Mark Twain had a great quote. You obviously can't make any speech without quoting either Mark Twain or God, he's gone completely out of my head now, Oscar Wilde. Now, Mark Twain always used to say, I'm sorry for writing such a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one. Now, one good way to shorten everything is to use original similes and metaphors. Okay, they can inject powerful images into people's minds and reinforce messages. You know, so you might say, well, Boris Johnson had one the other night. You know, he was talking about easing the lockdown. And you know, we all switch off when we hear the word lockdown. So he kind of said, right, the journey down the mountain for mountaineers is often slower and more arduous, perhaps more dangerous than the journey up. It's a nice, powerful image to put into your mind about coming out of the lockdown slowly. Or if we don't do something about our vanishing ecosystems, then we'll end up as a species like two blue bottles fighting over the last rotting carcass in the infected yard. You know, these are powerful, that's not Boris's, that was one of mine, powerful images. And they save you writing because you put that image into someone's head. Or one of my favorites from P.G. Wodehouse describing a character. He looked like a sheep with a secret sorrow. Okay, you could have had a page trying to describe that person, but he's just done it with 9 words, a sheep with a secret sorrow. So I'm not saying you write like that on your business communications, but remember the power of simile and metaphor. So that is, as an example, quickly before we move on, which email would you read if it landed in your inbox? Would you read this email? Dear Mandy, thank you for reaching out. I'm writing to let you know that I've considered our dialogue and come up with a series of what I think you'll find to be innovative solutions to your challenges in terms of maximizing the effect, etc. It goes on and on with innovative, forward-thinking organization, providing bespoke professional solutions to aid individuals. Okay, this could go on forever. I don't have time to read this. I've switched off anyway at reaching out. That's when I start. Or dialogue. Why do we say dialogue instead of just talking to people? So, or would you read this email? Nice and short. 3 bullets that are actually bullets. Even if I don't read anything around that, I've got the 3 points in the middle. The visual side of these sort of things are very, very important. Newspapers worry endlessly about what stories look like, the visual side to draw the reader in. And what you're doing is you're drawing the reader into your bullet points. And each bullet point, you will notice, has a problem that is being solved. Pretty generalized, but I'm just making a point. We can fix the roof to stop the rain. We repair the floorboards to stop you falling through them. We put a lock on the door so you won't get robbed. Give me a call. Is there anything I might have missed? Always end on a question. So concision is absolutely vital in our time-poor age. Rule number 4, use simple language. Long words and sentences put people off. Don't ask people, don't ask people's brains to do too much. Focus on the message. Your number one job is to get your message across. There's a great line. Don't let the writing get in the way of the message. Very good friend of mine, business editor at the Telegraph. I quoted in my book because I love this quote, which he gave me. If the writing announces itself either by being shouty or showy-offy or eccentric and weird or cliquey and obtuse, then suddenly the reader is reading the writing and not the story, which is when they'll stop reading. So you want them to be getting the message and not focusing on reading your impenetrable prose. The way to do that is to use short words and short sentences. Full stops are free, as my first editor used to tell me. If you use lots of them, your readers will thank you for it. Your job is to be clear and not to sound clever. People who use lots of big words, I find, are hiding their small brains. Or more politely, the longer it takes you to explain an idea or concept, the less you understand it. As we said about ideas, it was the same thing. If you can't explain your idea to your granny, it's not a very good idea. So here are some tips on keeping things simple, okay? Write as you speak. The best writers always do. It is only by learning to write as you speak that you'll get the natural rhythms and cadences that make everyday language engaging and above all human. Ignore these grammar police, okay? All these weird grammatical tics you half remember from school. Don't end a sentence in a preposition. What should I use? Who or whom? And all this stiff and formal stuff. People just switch off, okay? The brain just it wants to be spoken to like a human. Write as though you're talking directly to an intelligent friend. Okay, that is a good tone of voice. The greatest danger of writing in a business context is the urge to over-formalize your language and write as though you're delivering a speech or thesis to a room full of crusty academics. You end up sounding pompous and dull. Be human, okay? Or people will soon find better things to do than listen to your speech, read your article, or blog or your email. So that's the first rule, I would say, of keeping things simple. Just be yourself, speak normally. Avoid all jargon, of course. That's what I'm going on about all day, all these innovative solutions, enhanced experiences, customer-centric value chains, insightful insights, delivering deliverables, always delivering deliverables. Be human. Here is my slide of heinously overused words in business. There are many more. I'd say these are some of the biggest culprits. So that if you see this in your literature, think twice, because the brain, as I say, it's water over a worn pebble. We are innovative, we've got insights, we're sustainable, of course, we leverage opportunities, we're disruptors. Our people are dynamic, we take a holistic view, we give our customers experiences, of course, when we're not giving them solutions, and they're not customers, they're stakeholders, okay? We're always empowering people or enhancing things. Okay, try and avoid this way of speaking. Facilitate, utilize, okay? Don't say utilize, say use, facilitate. Okay, we'll make that happen. Try to be human. So on that, use crisp, meaningful verbs. Flaccid, flabby verbs will anesthetize your writing. So avoid pompous non-words like synergized, utilized, facilitated, as I said, or evidenced. Use simple verbs like mixed, used, eased, proved, instead of saying, we provide solutions that will significantly enhance your user experience. It's better to say, our job is to make your life easier. Don't say our digital enablement team implement positive outcomes in the PC services space. Say we'll fix your computer when it breaks. Keep it simple. And people will thank you for it. My final rule, if you're still not half asleep or checking your phones, say something interesting. Try always to be original. Relate to people. Why is this important to me personally? Think about it. What is the so what? Every news story you'll ever read in whatever medium that might be, television, newspaper, blog, podcast, will have a so what. Does your article or post pass this, or blog post pass the so what test, even your marketing? In other words, is it genuinely interesting or useful? Does it contain information that people will want to tell a friend? In other words, oh, that's interesting, I'll share that, I'll tell someone, oh, I didn't know that. Is it an original angle on an old topic? Will it raise an emotional response, stick in someone's mind, or is it just marketing fluff, dull academia, or a series of self-aggrandizing platitudes? You've got to be honest with yourself. We have to do that. I do this all the time. Am I just talking to myself here, or am I talking to my clearly defined audience, telling them something that really will interest them? Just because I'm saying it doesn't make it interesting. And if you don't remember anything I've said today, then always try to obey these 5 rules whenever you write anything or say anything. Speeches, pitches particularly, articles, websites. Think about who you're writing for. Picture an individual, and then be clear, be concise, but above all, be human. Say something interesting. And I'll finish up on I butchered a poem by Rudyard Kipling. It's the classic corporate poem, If. It's in every corporate training day. You will find this poem probably on the wall. Well, I've butchered it in order to show you how this kind of language I've been talking about infects and poisons all that it comes into contact with. So here goes. If, with apologies to Rudyard Kipling. If you can align your core values when all about you are losing theirs and circling back to you, if you can take a deep dive when all stakeholders doubt you, but make allowance for their ongoing concerns too, if you can leverage and not be tired of leveraging or delivering deliverables, don't not deliver deliverables. If you can integrate customer-centric solutions, but remain outcomes to focus. If you can decision when all decisioning is done. If you can fill the unforgiving weekly update with 60 minutes worth of meaningless humdrum. Yours is the corporate ecosystem and everything that's in it. And, which is more, you'll be dynamic, my son. And that is the end of my short talk. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you may have learned a few lessons from it, and will help you in your future communications with clients and employees and anyone else, your family, whoever it may be.
Charlie, thank you so much. I know Kipling would be very, very proud of you building on the platform that he offered you originally. Loads of really good stuff there across the 5 tips. I know we've got to wind up to get within our hour, but there are a couple of quick questions, if that's okay, before we say goodbye. The first question was really from this is a pre-recorded session, but we have seen this session before, and one of the questions that was asked was, how do you marry the notion of being clear and concise and bringing great clarity in your language with the fact that, given we live in a world of search engine optimization and Google search, etc., how do you make sure that your writing gets found online?
Very good point. It's a question that's been asked before. The answer is you've got to do both. So it goes back to my point about getting all the important information that you want the world to know about you in the top line, in your first 20, 30 words. Yes, you've got to get these search engine optimization words in. I have to do it for my website and my business, and it hurts. But in your metadata, you can put that in your metadata and that can be found. But when you are talking about your business, you have to be able to articulate why you are different to everybody else in a few words and a few short messages. Get those out of the way first, and then you can move into your metadata words,
Yeah.
I would say.
My second question was I suppose your talk about sort of the ubiquity of uniqueness you mentioned some way through earlier at the beginning. And you referred to your son's bicycle needing repairing. And rather than call it a sort of innovative solution for, for cycles, just get the bike fixed. I suppose the challenge is it's not just as simple as just everyone saying, I deliver beer, I deliver laundry. They want to be set themselves aside from the category as a whole. When you meet companies or brands that have that kind of issue, how do you help them sort of?
Well, you've got to, yes, good question. So thank you. It's one of those things where, you can either, you sit in a room for 4 hours answering these dreadful questions, who are we? But what you have to do, as I say, and I'll go back to it, once you've got your clear messages. So if you're the, you need to articulate this. So if you're the bicycle shop, why are you different? Well, we're different because we're always polite. We always fix your bike on time. And you know what, we're a bit more expensive actually, and the reason we're more expensive is because we do what we say we do. And that's why we're different to Jones's bicycle shop down the road, is because when people walk out of this shop, they think, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed chatting to, Bob, he always fixes my bike. And yes, he is a bit more expensive, but he'll always get the job done when he says he'll get the job done. Those are differentiators. And your business is no different. Sit down and think hard about why your business is different to the competitors. And once you've done that, you can create those. So Bob at the bicycle shop has those 3 messages. He fix it when he says he does. Reassuringly expensive, like the beer, and always friendly and polite. So you can say, those are my messages, and those are the ones every bit of communication I put out are going to embody those messages from now on, reinforce them.
And the final question was really about, I suppose, the management consulting industry, for which we're a big provider as one of our services, as I'm sure you know, probably extremely guilty of using a very high volume of those heinous words in your grid there. I suppose communication is a two-way street, isn't it? And how do you advise, if you're speaking to another management consultant who's using lots of words like leveraging our stakeholder relationships to find an innovative solution, how do you communicate with someone who likes to communicate in the heinous phrases that you employed earlier?
You stick to your guns. I would say, obviously, I'm going to say that. When you're going to a meeting with anybody, you come in with the messages. You need to have thought about the 3 points that you want to make. And any meeting you ever make has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, or it just goes on forever. Okay, you have to have a goal to reach at the end of that meeting. It doesn't matter if the other person's talking like that. You'll say, well, am I getting closer to the goal that I've set? That we have set ourselves. This is about you communicating. If they want to talk that language, then yes, they can, but I wouldn't recommend it. And some people use it, as I say, to hide behind, or because they don't really understand the concept. When I call my book "How to Influence the People That Matter," because actually the people that really matter, the people at the top, the people who make these decisions to buy your service or your product, don't speak like this. They people who do well in business speak clearly. And achieve clearly defined aims. Yeah,
and it's certainly something that you've done today, Charlie, speaking extremely clearly. A huge thank you from we had 240 sign-ups to our webinar. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Really good, and he's got a very good book, The Art of Plain Speaking, which is available from all good online bookshops at the moment. Next week we have, or actually 2 weeks time, I think we have Alex Payne from the Influencer Room. Alex Payne was a presenter on Sky Sports and has recently moved into the world of influencer marketing. So he'll be talking about that. But yes, just a couple of thank yous. Although this is a pre-recorded one, thank you to everyone who listened first time, and thank you to new listeners who've just joined today. But most importantly, a huge thank you to Charlie. Really interesting, and at a time like this, being able to communicate clearly and concisely really matters. So thank you, Charlie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a great pleasure.